Well, I wanted to give you an update on how this kite flies. Today I had the opportunity to fly it for the first time. The wind was very light. From zero really to three, 0 to 5, very variable wind and not very much wind. But even so, this kite flew very, very well. And the bow amount that I put into the leading edge right here, hope you can see this, was very modest, enough so that I thought when I was at the flying field that the shape was truly rectangular from the points on the end of the leading edge and of the trailing edge. So it wasn't much of a bow. If I stack two fingers together, that's about the distance between here and the tension line that I used. The bridle connections I used were at the very ends of hope you can see this, the very ends of the leading edge. The bridle connection here and here. That's the upper yoke. And then it comes down to here where I connected the lower bridle, and the lower bridle I attached below the low point of the hole I put in the center of the kite. Now that seemed to work pretty well. What I didn't do, and had thought about it, but decided against it in the beginning. Now often the spars in the center where they meet are tied together right here. Now what this does is creates a slightly stiffer spar because the spar is responding from the midpoint rather than the endpoints. But I wanted to find out if the kite would fly well and in what winds without tying that together. Now, in these light winds that I tested it in, it flew very well. So not tying the spars together at the center, I think was a contributor to its flight success. So in the future, I will tie these together and test it again and see how that responds to both light and stronger winds. Now, the next experiment I'm going to make for the Korean is I'm going to make the same exact size kite, but I'm going to use a material that is much smoother. I'm going to use a polyfilm that is both heavier, stiffer, and exceedingly slippery, and see if that makes a difference, and if so, what differences it makes. Now, the reason I'm going to try this is because I think that this material, this is a polyfilm from Amazon, and it's probably, I don't know, a mil or maybe 1.2 mil thick. It's relatively heavy. compared to the polyfilms I normally use. And because it's thicker, it's also stiffer. And I thought, well, you know, it's slipperier than paper. The surface of paper is not this slippery, but the amount of stiffness of paper, which traditionally is what Korean kites sails are made from, is washi or rice paper. But the stiffness of the paper is very similar, I think, to the stiffness of this material, this polyfilm. So that's what I'm going to try next on the next kite I make and see if it makes a difference, and if so, what difference that is. And when I find that out, I'll let you know. Well, I hope that you have decided to try making a Korean kite. I will tell you this, it is a superb flying kite. When you have this tracking, like if it's going horizontal, that baby will track like it's on rails. The spin of this was a little bit peculiar to me, but I think it could be the result of both the kite itself having an unusual spin and also the way I bridled it. And I think in the next one, I will bridle it so that I have two options. One below the hole and one would at the center of the spars. I will tie the lower bridle point right here and see how that makes the kite respond. And I believe it will make the kite much quicker in its turning and its response to my flying line manipulation. So I'm eager to test that out. And using this material, this heavier, more slick surface, I'm eager to find out how this will do. And I'm going to use exactly the same spars, exactly the same dimensions with this one as I did on this one. And I'll report back to you when I get the results. And if you have made a Korean kite of any sort and have experience flying it, please share it. Share your experience so that I and others can learn. This is what I think the YouTube channel is the greatest tool for, is learning. And I expect you to participate as much as I do, and hope you do.